So, hi everyone. Good evening on another Friday, beginning to your weekend. And this week we're very, very excited to be in conversation with Saumya Shankar Bose, who you can see on the screen with me. Um, you're joining in on another session of the Offset Gufgu series. Every week we have an artist talk or a panel discussion with authors, publishers, artists, photographers, writers who've been working with the photo book. And the idea is to kind of keep these conversations open. So uh, hopefully we're going to have a very candid conversation with Saumya about his work and also talk about the act of publishing and you know any any problems or any triumphs that he's faced under the same. Um Saumya, as you can see on the other side of the screen, Saumya is a photographer, independent photographer who grew up in Midnapore, but I think now pretty much travels wherever he feels there is some work or a question that's inquiring him to kind of prod further into a subject. He's, I think, one of the first works that I did see by Saumya was the work on retired Jatra artists. That work was even titled Jatra, and his current work, Let's Sing an Old Song, actually looks at a very important moment in this country's history that has not really been spoken about or acknowledged by state records, government records, or people's memory. And what Samya has tried to do is, in many ways, conduct an investigation on that work um, by using witness accounts, by using news pieces, conversations with people who he's met as a result of researching this project. And actually, I'll let him talk more about it. Um, the project that we are going to be discussing today has been supported by the Foundation for Indian Contemporary Art, India Foundation for the Arts, Magnum Foundation, and the World Press Photo, right? That's a lot of support. So hopefully,
So
we'll
hopefully the
end up.
support will come
No,
as like a good thing.
I'm sure that is there. Hopefully, you'll also be able to talk about how this support has helped in very tangible ways also, during the process of research and execution of the work as well.
Mhm.
uh, Welcome to the talk show.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ansika. Like I was watching this series of Gufgu like from the very beginning, like when Rohit and other people like started. I think Rohit was in the first
Rohit was
Gufgu
on it,
series, right?
yeah, he was in the
Eh,
first, yes.
Yeah. So like fantastic, like all the photographers, friends from India mostly, and also like Pakistan and other places like from
Right.
subcontinent mainly. It's so interesting. Thank you so much for inviting me. And this is like the first book and the
Is it
first
the
book
first
launch.
talk on the first book even?
Yeah, the first book event. Like after the book is ready,
Yes.
we did
We,
couple of talk, but then the book was not ready. Only we talked about the work, not about
right.
the book. Like we are mainly we talked about the process, like how we are making the book and all. But now like this is the
Now
first.
you made it.
The book is in my hand. Yeah,
Yes.
and
And
just
in
came
ours
back from
too.
Delhi. Yeah.
Yes.
Just came back from the after painting and all. Yeah. So
Right.
should I start like
Yes,
from
I
start
think it
about the
would be
project?
nice to, yeah, I think it'll be nice to give a little bit of a historic, I mean, a context to the work and how the work started. And I think the best way to do that maybe somewhere is for you to actually talk to us about this massacre that a big part of this country does not know of, and even outside, by default then.
Mm-hmm. So I think like though it like a major part of Indian people we don't know about this massacre, but we all know about the partition history and the problems and like the people who came from Pakistan after partition and the people who actually went to Pakistan after partition. The same thing. Like I am saying Pakistan because in 47 it was Pakistan. So Bangladesh's
Right.
name came from 71.
Hmm.
And the problem actually started from there was because of the political turbulence, and they like suddenly, in a very like short time period, they divided the country in two, three
Right.
part, and then people suddenly became homeless in their own homeland, like just because of their religion or caste and this kind of. problems, like
Mm-hmm.
the like that same place or same neighborhood, they like live for like 60 years or 7 years 70 years, and then suddenly realize after 47 15th August that okay, this is not my country anymore, I have to go to India, or I have to go to Pakistan, like vice versa.
Right.
And from then actually all these problems started. Like, so when they first start coming to India after 47
When you
partition.
say when they first, just to kind of clarify, we're talking about refugees that were coming from the Pakistani side.
Yeah, but I don't like, I don't prefer actually, though like it's a right word to understand, but I like beginning, I don't love the word refugee because like as how we see the refugee problem in Middle East and other part, but this is not a problem because it's a kind of, they had their own home,
Right.
they are forced to go just because of their religion, because they
Right.
divided the country in for only two, like a Muslim they can live here, the Hindus they can live here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And mainly for Bengal, like they divided the Bengal, the West Bengal part in Pakistan, and
Right.
sorry, East Bengal part in Pakistan, and West Bengal like remained as West Bengal.
Right.
But it was Bengal before like 1910 sometime, like when they divided
Mm-hmm.
the Bengal. So they came. I think it's better to use the Bengalis
Okay.
who actually came, because these people are not like a refugee that they want to travel, like what happened
Right.
with Rohingya and all, because they actually can live there, but as because the government, and they're very confusing situation, like if the Pakistani government will support them or not, the Indian government will support the Muslim as not, and I think the still this problem is with us, and we always
Right.
use this in our politics, and that is actually the biggest problem still now,
Right.
and that's why this work is still like this
Mm-hmm.
incident is still contemporary for me, because we should talk more about it. So when these people start coming, the government gave them up refugee relief certificate, which is like inside the book. So
Right.
basically,
Can
this
you just
certificate,
go closer in for us,
huh.
please?
So
Thora niche. Yeah. Perfect.
so
Thank
this is basically a certificate. So if you see the certificate, it is mentioned that you will be settled outside of West Bengal, Assam, Tripura, not in any Bengali region. You have to live in a central refugee camp, which is provided by the government. And when they are actually coming, so mostly didn't get time to carry all the documents, like their
you. Right.
documents in Bangladesh, which the government now asking for. They only had this because lots of them didn't have the passport, right? Because they are living their own country till like 15th August.
Mm-hmm.
It is not like they're living in Syria and they want to move to US. It's not like that. They are living there in their own country, and
Right.
suddenly they realize, okay, the country is now two different country. It's more like we're living in Delhi, and suddenly you realize, okay, Delhi
Right.
is a different country now. Now, like, what do you want? You want to go to India, or you want to remain in Delhi?
Right.
So that is why, like, the refugee word for me is in this particular situation
Mm-hmm.
is a bit complicated to say. So what happened? So they came with this refugee certificate when they are crossing the border. This is the only documentation they had. And then they shifted to the rocky island in central India. The problem is all these people like who are 60, 70 years old or 50 or something like 40, whatever, like in different ages, they
Right.
only know the one language because they are coming from a very remote villages. Because the upper class and upper caste people who moved, they settled in Calcutta or to small towns like Siliguri, Burdwan, and all, and then
Right.
the rest part, like the lower middle class, like my family, they also come from Bangladesh and shifted to Midnapur, like which is the near the
Right.
Sikh side part and all. And the rest, the lower class who came later, like 50, 55, 56, 71, this time, the
Mm-hmm.
government gave them the shelter. It's the most lower caste people, Bengali people. Without knowing the language and without knowing the geographical area, they were shifted to a rocky island forest area in Malkangiri, the
Okay.
central refugee camp. And when they
Right.
shifted, it's border in Andhra Pradesh and Odisha. So if
Mm-hmm.
they want to do business, how you can do a business if you don't know the language, local language?
Mm-hmm.
The major people who came from Jashore and their profession was either farming or
Mhm.
fishing. This is actually the major profession in Bangladesh, also in the villages area, either farming or
Right.
fishing. But the rocky island where they shifted is not at all like for farming. The
Conducive to
land
it.
is not at all for farming and no option for fishing.
Mhm.
So the government used to give like 1 rupee as a ration and all. So this is also in a page like some in the book. So where like they had a kind of this ration card. Can you see?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Huh. So ration card. So every family used to get like the date is also mentioned here, the 76, 75. Like every year they used to get for 1 kilo per month something for the
Mhm.
entire family. What is like now the Bangladesh government is giving to Rohingya people who came there.
Right.
And for how many days they can do that? And it's going on from 50s. Because they
And there
don't
was
have a
no
proper.
infrastructural support that was being built
The
along with.
infrastructure is basically they give 1 or 2 cows, some few goats, and a small land and tents. That's it. And the and there are also some problem would happen with the people who already there, like in
Right.
Odisha and Andhra Pradesh, because they are the local people. So they are also not welcoming these people. The government, like the problem is they never planned properly. They put
Mhm.
everyone together, and this fighting start problem. And in the meantime, the that time the Communist Party government, not the government, the Communist Party of India, they actually visited these people many times and asked that, okay, if we come to the power, if people can come to Bengal. And this is the
Mhm.
confusion actually started. So these people
Right.
start believing if the Communist Party will come in power, then they will get a chance. In the
Right.
meantime, the other government parties is also like, even if in that time the power in the central government, the Congress was not like doing good, and the Janata Party, who actually later merged with BJP, this party was also actually, every party tried to. These people, mostly lower caste, non-educated, they actually tried to take advantage from these people and giving them false promises. So when the government, the CPM government came to the power in '77, so these people thought, okay, I think this is the time. Let's go to West Bengal
Right.
and let's settle in that Sundarban area named Morichapi.
Right.
So there was a leaflet which was distributed in that time. So the English translation of that was as the insert in the page. So this leaflet, handwritten leaflet, was distributed, and then people started more like a WhatsApp. They shared like hugely, and
Traditional WhatsApp.
yeah, traditional WhatsApp, and they got this leaflet. And I'm still don't know. It's difficult after 40 years to understand like if it was a fake or it was like intentionally done and all, because Satish Mandal was the leader and the name mentioned. As I know, he didn't know that how to sign, but there was already a signature of
You mean
Satish Mandal.
he was not literate to
No,
sign?
he was
Okay.
not literate, because what I have read, he was not literate at all to sign. He used to give the hand
Thumbprint.
tricks
Yeah.
that. But in this leaflet, this like Satish Mandal signed as the
Okay.
Shabhapati, the secretary of the Udbastu Unnayanshil Shomiti. And they came to West Bengal, Morichapi area from '77, and the government was not at all welcome them. Like they were not ready. The new government like just developed, and then with the government and these people like problems start happening from the very beginning. Central government, Janata Party, Muraraji Desai was a prime minister in that time. He said like, I'm not going to give any support to the state government, because that is also mentioned in a booklet like Jyoti Bosu
Hmm.
speech, that I'm not going to support to anyone, because these people are the citizen of India, not citizen of West Bengal, and we have already signed them from that document, the refugee
Right.
certificate, that we are not giving any place in West Bengal, Tripura, Assam. So you will
Okay.
not get any funding for these people to settle down in West Bengal. So it is like not only one government problem, it's like entirely all the
It's a
parties actually tried
functionality.
to,
Yeah.
which is like unplanned problem for all the government, because they didn't know, they invited the partition, they did the partition, but then they didn't know what to do with the people.
Hmm.
There's a huge people, they couldn't give them the proper work there in Malkangiri, so they don't have the money, so they're already dying there, starving because there's no food, rocky island, and they are not habituated to the life at all. The language is difficult for them because a 60 years or 70 years old person, how can I ask them to learn the language in next 1 and 2 year and do a new profession?
Right.
It's
Absolutely.
totally difficult. Yeah, so this is like started from the very beginning, and finally in 78, 31st January, the government and with the local party goons, they like went inside the village, the island named
Right.
Morichapi Island, and start openly fired and killed like people. Like we don't know the count. Like it's like many academics said it like can be 2000, 2000. Many said 200, 300, but government never accepted any people
There are no
died.
verified numbers or accounts that we can.
No verified numbers. Like whatever we have done is basically the people we made and asked and made a like documentation of the people who are missing, which actually we dedicated every page. So the book is started basically for the people who departed, not died, because we also don't know because it's basically these people are missing from that day
Right.
because the body was not found. And then in every page, in the right side, you will see one name. One name,
Right.
basically, it's dedicated to them.
Okay.
So we have found around six. So it's basically the book is 130 pages. So
Right.
divided by two, like the person we have, so we also made the page number according to that, like how many numbers we have found after 40 years. If we did this research in a 78, 79, then
Of
it was
course.
different.
The data would have been different.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and the government, many academies said like it can be like 2000, 2000 also. Many people died by starving because the government did a 3 months economic blockade from the island. It is the last island where the people live, Kumirmari, and this island now under forest, like Tiger is a forest, but uske baad aur kuch nahi. It's basically the Tiger is a
That's it.
forest and the
Right.
rivers and the ocean start, like the Bay
So
of Bengal.
that's pretty much the last bit of civilizational
It,
land that was
huh,
possible,
yeah,
right?
I can say, and
Right.
that is also easier for the government to kill and float the body.
And also keep numbers obscure because anyhow, like geographically, this is so separated either way.
It's
Sundarbans
separated,
in
yeah.
itself is an area that doesn't have.
Exactly. And if you float the bodies in the river, so it's going to the ocean, which is very difficult to track.
Right.
So people have seen bodies like in rivers, like the crab hunters or honey collectors. They say like from the other islands, they say like they have seen bodies and like like more than like next 3, 4 months, like
There were spottings of bodies
a
floating.
body part or something. Yeah, and also found like when they're hunting the crab, like inside the mud,
Right.
they have
Right.
found a body part.
Right.
So then like it's all the government actually destroyed all the documents in last 40 years because the same government was in power till like
Fairly
2000,
recently.
2000, really like 10 years back on.
Hmm.
So that is why they already got like more than 20, 30 years, right? To
Right.
destroy everything, every
Right.
documents related with this incident.
I'm going to interject here, if you don't mind,
Sure, sure, please.
just to kind of contextualize. So we know that there's this entire history now. We know
Huh,
that
huh.
there is this history which is about a mass relocation of people owing to, how partition happened within the division of India and Pakistan, and then later it became, even between Pakistan and then Bangladesh, kind of,
Mm-hmm.
which I know
Mm-hmm.
impacted Bengal altogether in a very different way. And that history has not obviously been spoken about as much. One
Mm-hmm.
does hear more of stories from the Punjab coming into this context. And but the interesting bit is that over here it's almost like they were not just relocated, but they were kind of contained on this island, which was completely unsuitable for them to sustain in any format whatsoever. And how, I mean, these reports of the firing that do exist, right? Is there any accountability taken for the firing reports? Does it come down to uh, anyone taking responsibility or being witness to who can be kind of brought in to, I don't know, to do a research or to do?
Yeah, so mostly like I followed four researchers main research paper, which is done in 90s,
Okay,
89,
okay,
and in 2000 and 2004-5, like owned by Rosh
okay,
Malik and Anu Jali. So these are the academics, like very important academics who did their research, a long research, like 800 pages, 900-page research on this particular massacre and the partition history. So the entire book is also like depending on the, because I'm not person academic, so I can't take that risk or responsibility to say that okay, these people died and all, and without
absolutely.
doing the research, because it's not part of my job. Because I'm an artist, so I'm just like trying to understand what happened by reading those research papers.
Right,
And this researchers I collaborated like with Raj Malik and Anu. So both of them did like a long, very intense research, and Anu's research is part of the booklet also inside the
right,
book.
right. Um,
And he also mentioned in the end in the book that sorry,
right.
and
No, no,
should I
I
say,
think
or
we
you
froze
want
for
to
a
ask me
slight
something?
second. I don't know what happened.
Okay,
But
okay.
I wanted to move from there, like you said, like of course there is research that
Mhm.
was accessible in very restricted spaces. It's not information that was
It's
out there.
basically academic research, and it's
Absolutely.
also for me is a kind of like also the academics also think a similar way. Like it is only for the academics reads the academics research paper, because
Right.
nobody reads the 800 pages, and it's only available in like either in a research magazine or in like university libraries.
Right.
So
I wanted to move from there into the factors that led you to kind of follow this up as a
huh,
photographic. I don't want to say it's a project because I feel like sometimes the intensity required is
huh,
probably more
huh,
more than what the word project might
hmm,
entail.
hmm,
But it kind of put you on this journey, let's say, to investigate further, and then to pick up from what you just said, is
hmm,
that in many ways also with the work you're not trying to do this research, right? That's not part of the profile. uh, you are kind of responding to this as an artist, right? If I got that right. And so in that dynamic, I mean, if you can take us through, you have volumes of research in front of you, right?
hmm.
A lot of it would be data based, I'm imagining, engaging. How do you then, at that point of time, kind of pick up this research and approach it from as someone who's going to be kind of photographing the issue? I know the work is also something that you have been kind of following for about 2 years. I think it took you to
More than, yeah, it's like
right.
almost 4 years, 4 to 5 years.
4 years. Okay. I
Yeah.
think when we met last, that was with the
But it's
first.
in middle, like I already started making photographs. Yeah, 2 years back, I think.
Yeah.
Yes, 18.
Right. So I'm curious to know, as a photographer, then how do you approach this? Are there particular methodologies? Are there
Mm-hmm.
particular visual tools that you choose to kind of pick up in the creation of the work? And I'm going to layer one more question within it, to ask you, at that point and at that stage, did the idea of the book come right at the beginning of the work and the research itself, or is that something that happened over a period of time once the work was closer to being
Mm-hmm.
completed?
Okay, so the first is basically I started this from 2015, like start working, like reading the research paper and other regional writer who also wrote about this incident and all, and collecting newspaper. Because the every work like I do the research, even with the Jatra work, like finding the people is basically the most difficult job, like part of this
Right.
work, because these people not live in a singular place, like in a small way you can go and meet them. Like they are now after 40 years they're moved like in a different part of India. So it's time for Jatra. So the thing is like all my work is related in a one word. It's either it is about the desire or about the memories. Like I try to
Sorry,
perceive like
either about desire or
are the memories.
okay.
Like it's
Mm-hmm.
Jatra is the same thing, because it's someone like they're telling about their glorified past, like when they're very famous actors and now nobody like take about knows about them,
Mm-hmm.
and then reimagining their past.
Right.
So I think this work is also same, the reimagining of the past. and how like people want to remember their memories in what way. Like you want to see them as their heroes of their memories, or do you want to show them as the victims of their memories in their
Hmm.
memories.
Hmm.
When someone is telling a story, I believe like when I am listening after 40 years of even if in Jatra work or this work, it's not the exact incident anymore. It became the fictional past. Though the
Right.
reality is there, the fact is there, but it's fictional because it's coming from a one perspective. And then like 40 people are I'm meeting or 100 people I'm meeting, they are telling their perspective about a particular incident.
Right.
So I'm pretty much sure after 20 years, your version of Corona time and my perspective of Corona time, and my friend whose father died just 2 days back because of Corona, his stories about Corona after 40 years totally will be different, right?
Absolutely.
So different. So the first, the very beginning, like it's true that what I'm showing, it's basically partly fictional and partly basically the reality. And I always say that so there will be no confusion because my book is I wanted to make it as a book from the very beginning because there is no proper book or documentation of this incident. So if I don't do now, then like it's already 40 years, the people like who were 40s in that time, they are 80s now
They're
or
already.
30s now. So after 20 years, someone's go, then like there will be only who are 10 years or 6 years hardly had the memories of the incident.
Right.
So for me, I thought like it's important not only for the artists, also for the academics or researchers, but it is like we should make a book from this work. Otherwise, we lost because exhibition or any kind of like a by part editorial publication, it is just keep a, like a one part of the work, not the entire
Hmm.
work. And if you
Right.
see the book is not only the images. Like this book, we also try to make in a reading. Like there's lots of conversation is going through, which actually I did with the collaborators. I mean the survivors. So
Right.
the survivors and me were conversing and talking about the memories, and I trying to understand and trying to perceive from their memories that what happened with my families when they came back and the stories I have heard, like they had a house and came back and the struggle. I think this is actually the entire work, entire book
Right.
that a generation who born like late 80s or 90s and the incident happened before them and how we want to remember about this partition history because we will not be able to understand what the struggle was there in 47 or the 71 war, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But only we can try to understand our time or try to relate with other incident that maybe this can happen and this not. So this is how also the reenactment happened in the work.
Right.
There's a many things like I reenacted in the Sundarban, mostly in the areas near the Morichapi Island because Morichapi Island will not be able to enter. So the
Right.
inter work, the images except the portraits of the people, those portraits mainly have taken in the central part of India,
Hmm.
and the images like the landscapes and the reenactment pictures are made in the Sundarban's delta areas. So basically,
Okay.
I listened them in Central Camp, came back to Sundarban, and tried to find a location where we can make a picture which is somehow related with their memories. And it is a very similar process I also did in Jatra, but I did in Jatra mainly portraits. But
Right.
here I work with the space and also with the portraits, which
Right.
is like in this
Right.
book, and also the text, the conversation.
Right. I want
So
to
yeah.
talk about this treatment to, this idea of kind of reenacted portraits that are actually reflective uh, of an individual's memory or a collective memory in that sense are they're very prominently there in all the three works of yours that we have seen, whether it's Jatra, whether it is the ongoing work on the queer community, whether it is the work on the massacre right now. And you know I'm curious to know, for you, for your photographic practice, not just for these particular projects. um, it seems that that is sort of an aesthetic, or that is kind of like a visual approach that has an echo with how you look at photography, even to a
Mhm.
certain degree. I mean, this is how, and this could be completely my reading and I could be off on it, but in many ways it allows for the basis and the foundation of a conversation to be embedded in a historical moment, or in a moment, that has a certain gravity in your life. And then your reenactments allow you to also kind of fictionalize it to a certain degree, even for yourself, what you were talking about. um, However, if I can come to this book, and I think it might be nice for those who are here with us right now to also see some pages of the book, if you can
Mhm.
share your screen with us, and we can see some of the spreads there.
Okay. Okay. So before sharing screen, just like 2 minutes, just to give an idea, like how
Uh-huh.
I work. I think like films are the major influences in my work because when I was growing up, like the only source, because I brought up in Midnapur, so my
Right.
only source to the outer world was the books and the films. And this
Right.
books is basically helping me to imagine about the outer world, and the films actually help me to make the visual. So when I start
Right.
working as a photographer, these two things actually merged in my work because books are telling the stories of the real people and let you think, imagine about the characters. Like if you
Right.
just give a small example, like if you like, though it's very like a Hinduistic thing, but still like if you example take a like
Mm-hmm.
Ramayana, and if you read in a like 4 years, 5 years old and listen Ramayana from your grandparents, so automatically you start thinking like, okay, Dasurat maybe looks like grandpa or someone,
Right. Right.
right? And this visual reference we all take from our surroundings, like what we have in our head, in our visual archives, and I'm seeing different. So in my work, I love to watch films, but the only thing I don't like in the films, the heroes are not the real heroes. They are like someone acted. So when I work, I try to put the real heroes who are acting their own memories.
Okay.
And this is actually Jatra, this is also this work and Full Moon. All the work that you see is basically they are acting their own life. So that is why it takes too much time, and I only considered one work particularly at a time. Like
Mm-hmm.
for 4 or 5 years, I do research and do workshop and then work because these people, not everyone is actors, so they don't know how to act. It takes also time to kind of a phase like how to act in front of a camera. But I love because when you're seeing someone as a hero and then you also realize, okay, this is the person actually who are telling this story and this is
Right.
telling their story, her story or his story. And these things I love because they are the heroes of their own story. So let's just share the screen so that you can
Yeah.
also ask me
Yeah. I mean, I'm
if
curious
there's
to
a
know,
particular.
when these shoots happen, then do you consider yourself a director of these shoots in some
Yeah, I think I see myself as director, cinematographer, everything.
ways?
And the
Everything.
person
Okay.
is basically my collaborator, actor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Right.
like the
What I wanted to ask you in terms of, when direction comes in, is
Mhm.
that, are you then in many ways even directing them uh, to the location, to what moment out of their memory you'd want them to remember at that point of time? Are those things that are, I mean, one can't
Okay.
obviously script it right to to the last
Hmm.
point, but just in order to kind of understand the
Yeah.
nature of
Sure.
collaboration that comes
Sure.
into place
So what we do, like we first do a long conversation for weeks, and once
here.
the
Hmm.
conversation is done, then I start like doing transcribing, and then from the transcription, I start like me and my collaborators start like getting, okay, this part of the transcription I think is very interesting because when we speak about certain memories after 40 years, we speak so much things and we discuss so much things. Not everything is possible to come with the visuals,
Right.
and then we select a particular part from the transcription part of the interviews or the discussion, not interview, like a discussion I say.
Hmm.
And then from that part we start finding location and then also conversing, what do you think, how we can do this. And then we, after a certain kind of like a 2 weeks or 3 weeks discussion, in a point when they also think, okay, this is I think the right time to make the picture. Because if you see the picture is also gives you some confusion, is it reenactment or not? Because few images seems like reenactment, few images doesn't look like a reenactment. And this confusion actually I love because this is also part of our life because we all act like, either we are acting like a artist, acting like a daughter, son, And every time we're acting, it's basically part of it is basically the real me, and the part of it is basically I'm trying to act like a perfect daughter or perfect son or perfect partner, perfect bookmaker, perfect artist. But nobody is perfect. For
Right.
me, like nobody is perfect, but we all are trying to make a perfect thing, which is also coming in my work. Like we are trying, but also you have to be sure from the very beginning this is not the reality. It's all we are trying. And as you say, and for photography, I think it's the thing like we always believe in photographs, not the films. Films like we emotionally fall with it for
Mhm.
films, but we always know that these people are acting for someone. They are not the
Right.
real. But the photographs we always believed because photography started from the journalism, from the history, like when
Has
it
a history
picked
of
up,
being that,
in
evidentially.
First World War, Second World War, yeah, like all the people even. Like in my work, like you say that uh,
Hmm.
so there's a pictures of violence, but I don't personally want to put a person who already faced a violence in their life. I don't want them to put in the same position again after
Right.
40 years. So that is
Right.
why I love to reenact those parts. So I can tell the stories, but they are also not tortured,
Right.
right? So these are like again, he's a real survivor who lost his families during the massacre. They split it, and there was no phone. So after like many years, and it's already mentioned in the text in
Right.
the left side, and yeah, after Moichoi massacre, they got like after 30 years, they reunited in a Orissa village. They found their entire family together.
Hmm.
So yeah, and is one of the missing person. So one survivor told me like he actually hidden under the leaves in the forest for days, and like hide it so that after the police left, they only came out after that. Like it's like
Hmm.
almost 2 3 days they hide it under the leaves inside the dense forest. So these are
Hmm.
the things like reenacted. But again, like this person is a real person, a survivor, and still has that bullet wound in his right leg,
Right.
and also he's part of the reenactment.
Right.
So this fiction and reality is coming in the book because when I am also listening, I also don't know what exactly happened because I'm only
Right.
listening, meeting 50% of the survivors because who were at that time the leaders of the movement, like 50 or 60 years old, they already died like
They've not. Yeah.
long back. Huh? So you can't say this is exactly happened. You're just telling these people's memories, what they are still want to remember about the incident, what they actually don't want to remember. This
Hmm.
wanting and don't want, this is actually this work. Like what I want to remember about our past and what we don't want to remember about our past.
Right.
And the book is basically what we want to remember, and the rest is basically what we have to imagine when we are reading the text, that the part we don't want to remember.
Very
So
similar to how you used to read your books when you were in Midnapur as a child. When you said
yeah,
this is, it's in front of you, but the rest of it you kind of begin to imagine. Um,
exactly.
I do want to ask you, in
Uh,
terms of as we're kind of going through the pages of this book,
uh-huh.
they are, visually speaking, it almost seems like different chapters that are kind of running parallel to each other. There is, of course, you photographing
Mm-hmm.
the landscape, you doing portraiture, there's reenactment. Uh, there are also images that you have taken out of people's archives. There is archival
Mm-hmm.
material, and there is the narration of a text, but more from this page is actually an ideal page to kind of stop at, where you have the narration of a story which is told to you by a survivor, and then you have this timeline that one is running through, uh, you know
Mm-hmm.
that that's kind of in some ways maybe your visual analog, your visual
Mm-hmm.
diary, your visual log
Mm-hmm.
of what it has been to research this project. um,
Mm-hmm.
Assimilating all of this together into one book where there can be uh, a comfortable flow of understanding and reading the work itself can often be very difficult. And I know that, even earlier this year when we had met, there were ways that you were looking to kind of bind it together stronger and things of that sort. Uh, how do you figure out in your particular case, how did you make this decision to kind of integrate all of them? Very often you see that, the towards the end of a project, like one begins to filter the stuff out and says, okay, maybe what I'll use in the book is just this one element, but you've continued to draw these parallels at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that was very important to you right from the beginning? Is this
Mm-hmm.
something that came in as a suggestion from the designer? I know to a large degree, I think the design has been you and your partner. I know
Mm-hmm.
Bernali has joined us in the chat today
Yeah,
as a
she's mine. Huh.
participant. Um, and it would be, I mean, it'd be nice to know what were the factors you were thinking about when, the work was there, you realized the work had come up to a point where um, you felt it was ready to be put out into the
Mm-hmm.
world, and then the process of the book began. uh, so I mean, I'm just curious to know this decision to kind of continue with these different visual languages, different aesthetics, different elements all coming together. uh, how did that kind of take form?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I think from the, as I said, like from the very beginning, like we thought about the process of the book,
Hmm.
like last 5 years, like when you're collecting from the archives from the very beginning, like what, like to start thinking how we can make it as a book.
Right,
And we also thought about that we'll not make a book just a photo book, like just photos, photos, and photos, because sometimes like readers, like from academic perspective, who also want to read something,
right,
or some like, like what happened, like we often make a photo book and with only photographs, which is
right.
important, strong, but particularly for this work, I think we also need some of um, context of the incident from the survivors also.
Right.
So that is why we thought, like after 80 hours, 19 hours conversation, and then we transcribed and then we actually selected a part from it.
Hmm.
And it's more like a journey. I think this book is like throughout the 4 years, what happened when I was traveling and what kind of actually we discussed before making the picture. So book is basically, for me, is basically a diary, like
Right.
so like a kind of a conversation we did, and then we made a picture. So when you read, sometime you'll also realize, okay, this picture actually, maybe this conversation happened before and then this picture was made.
Hmm.
So because I listened those conversation in Mana camp or central part and then came back to Sundarban, so like
Right.
things are actually I am carrying inside my head, like this conversation I did last week,
Hmm.
I am now trying to make a picture from this conversation. So I thought, why not the entire part, just part of the conversation just to put inside the book.
Hmm.
So when the readers will read, they will go through a journey, not only just seeing the beautiful images.
Right. Right.
Uh, and in this particular page, if you see the left part is basically is from my own brother, which happened last year. So when I am doing this work, there's multiple things which has happened in my own life and how I'm trying to relate with the incident when I'm listening. When someone
Ah.
told me like a bullet wound, and when my brother actually lost his leg, and I'm trying to get the feelings of that incident when someone is telling from through my brother's incident,
Hmm.
because it's a very similar incident but in two different time period. One happened in 79 and one 2019. And those part I also put inside the book, so that this is kind of I am also trying or pushing myself to understand um, the pain, like the pain they actually carrying inside their head. It's maybe not as like it's nothing similar with their pain with my pain, but how I am, like what I say, like in a new generation, people are trying to understand that partition problem and the pain and their problem and their struggle now, and trying to relate with their parallel incident happening in their own life. So there are multiple layers, I think, inside the book, which actually Bonnie helped me, because she's sorry, Bonnie, she's a filmmaker, and editor, mainly editors. So she works with many filmmakers. So she knows how to work with footage, like a 200 hours,
Right.
300 hours footage, and then coming with 2 hours film. So I
Right.
think it was also experiment for us because editor is designing a book. So when you will see the book, so you will also get a part of a filmy effect because I am also very much inspired from the films which you can see in the visuals,
Mm-hmm.
like reenactment part is mostly influenced. So I think this is somehow worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like viewers will say how it is coming for them in the book,
But that
but
we have no control over. Like I
I
think.
know it's not control, but yeah. So, but we actually wanted to do this experiment. But for me, like artists, we always should. The artist life is for me is basically a journey in a learning and unlearning process. It's not like have to make something perfect in a one book. Maybe what I'm thinking perfect in this book after 20 years, I will design or Bernally will design in a different way.
Possibly,
Because
right.
yeah, because times change. Like in 20 years, so many things will change in our life. We'll see the things because we'll be in our 50s, then
Mm.
we'll see the incidents in a different way. Because
Right.
when you're in 20s, we are not thinking about death. We are not thinking about losing someone. But when you're in 50s, so you already lost many peoples in our life, like our
Mhm.
parents, maybe or maybe not. But
Right.
in 50s, 60s, if we see our mothers, they already lost their close one. And when you are 70s, 80s, like I am only the living person and I have already lost the 19% of 90% of our friends and other people.
Right.
And when I will see then the work, definitely the perspective will be different.
Right. Right. No,
Yeah, the
absolutely.
emotion will be different. So that's why like I think artist for me is basically the journey. The every 10 years it can be changed. Like when you do the second edition of the book, definitely will do something differently.
Right.
But
Right.
that should be like that is why we are making book limited edition book. It's not a literature book like we're making in a 10,000, 20,000. So limited 600, and then again second edition we can maybe I believe with the same thing, or maybe we will change if the time also changes with us, right?
Right.
And yeah, I'm just going through the book quickly. So these are the people who are missing and collected from different archives, newspaper, personal collection, who lost their dear ones, and then like like the image quality is not good. So when we zoomed
Right.
and put in the book and then and you can see the names in the right hand in every page.
Right.
There's the leaflets like I was mentioning, and also the English translation. All the insert is basically most of the cases not the
I did want
photographs.
to, yeah, I wanted to talk about the
Uh,
insert as well. Before we go there, I know we've kind of been talking
Running
for
out.
a bit, so I just wanted to put a little note saying that we will be addressing questions in another couple of minutes. So, any of you who might have any questions or anything that you might want to say to Shomo, there's a Q&A section at the bottom of your screen. Please address your questions there, and we'll pick it up as soon as we have a look at the book.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
Shoma,
the
we can
insert,
also
huh?
talk about the inserts, and maybe even in the book, in the screen that we're looking at.
Mhm.
I know that the insert section comes in, so we can probably you can show us that page and
Y-
talk about it. That would be nice.
Yes. So the insert is actually coming in the book. In there's three insert. Basically, one is here. The insert is not actually. It is part of the book, but you can also think it as individual because it's not a photograph or anything. This here, the insert is basically the English translation the of these two leaflets. So for the people who can read Bengali, they don't need that insert. So they can put it out and put inside the box. And that is why we made actually the box.
Right.
And so they can put inside the box and they can go through because there are many parts in the book which is in Bengali, mainly the archives. So
Mm-hmm.
the translation part we have put in English, and then there will be a booklet in page number
Take a little.
something. Yeah, here.
Yeah.
So there will be a booklet here, which is basically Anu's detailed research about the massacre, and also Jyoti Bosu's perspective, his speech in Vidhan Sabha in 79. So I transcribed hubohu, like what he
Right.
said,
As is.
and yeah, as it is, and then translate it. So people, if someone like from the academic perspective wants to know more details,
Mhm.
they can actually wrote that. I think it's almost 32 pages to 30 pages booklet. There's a
Right.
detailed research documents and everything like in a text format, so they can get to know about more details, what
So in
happened
many
and how.
ways, that insert is kind of like the core crux of the historical aspect
Exactly,
of the event.
exactly.
I'm
History.
curious to know why this was a separate insert and why. I mean, it's an insert that even comes. I mean, it's not attached to the book.
Mm.
In that sense. So I was curious to know why you chose to separate that element from the book as well.
Okay. So the book is already, if you see the book, except the booklet,
Mhm.
so it is already the conversation is going throughout the books with me and my collaborators, and the
Right.
images we are coming with my collaborators. So the book is entirely how like the journey is going through from last like 5 years. And if you see the days, it's more like a diary note, like when
Right.
I'm meeting them, and there's like expert from the diaries notes, like it's 156 days, and there's no
Mhm.
linear thing. There's
Right.
156 and then it's 117.
Right.
um, so the main like the booklet person is basically the details note about the incident, but not the conversation with me. So if we put the booklet, I mean Anu's research inside the book, then it will be more confusing for the readers because we're already going through a parallel conversation
Right.
within the images, and then again something coming up with like a 30 pages
Mhm.
incident. Because for
Right.
me, um, if you now we are living in a life like we always have this smartphone with us, so even if you
Right.
don't, if you need to know something about any incident, you can Google search, and there are lots of
Absolutely.
newspaper and like text and all.
Hmm.
But this research, this two research is also important in the end, because we always wanted that we'll go through the conversation, and then at the end of the book people will get to know about the incident properly, which will be in the page 113.
Mhm.
But they can also curate it when they're giving, like if a Bengali is reading this book, they don't need this text because they already know about the massacre. They heard from their parents or so. If my age, or if like if it was 40 or 60 years old, they already know about the incident.
Mhm.
So they don't know this text. They can go through the book. They can give someone the book without the booklet, because the
Okay.
person also know about the incident. They just want to go through the journey of the collaborators and me, and how we are trying to understand what happened. But for a person from Delhi, they can
Mhm.
also talk about the incident and then they can read. And also you can curate, like you can put the booklet in the beginning page, the first page. You can change it. You can change in the beginning so that when you are giving book to someone, they can read the incident first. Like a person from
Right.
outside India, they can read the book first, text first, and they can start looking the images. But the text, the booklet is always, there's a two separate things. The booklet is basically the research note, the details note about the incident, and the book is
Your response to
after exactly my response or my perspective, how I am perceiving the entire incident as an artist after reading those incident in a book. So when you are reading the books, you can also participate in the book and thinking about the images. So there's the two perspective. One, when you don't know the incident, and when you know the incident entirely and start imagining the space
it.
and the names who died and the conversation. And sometimes you will see the person in the conversation and sometimes you will not. And end of the book, you will get a note where actually you will also get to see who are the persons like Shoma
Right.
Shoma who are also part of the conversation, because I sometimes use like Robin uncle said me
Mhm.
this and Shomi Babu said me this, and also in the right part the archives and research materials I follow.
Right.
So, and then the actors and the survivors. So,
Right.
in the left part is basically all the survivors' name, what the real people. So, you'll get to know every details, like what is the fiction and what is the non-fiction part at the end of the book. But when you're starting, I don't want to give you in the very beginning that this is fiction, and then there's no point to make this work because it's no work is more like in a surreal way we wanted to put so that you also go through the journey and go with the book, read the text, imagine yourself, and then also see the images. When you are seeing the images, you can think about the text. When you're reading the text, you can think about your own visuals to put. There are some gaps also inside we tried to put. There is also like all Bonnie's work, how actually she once read the film and she once read the book. So
So this
yeah,
the performance piece that's right in the end is an actual performance piece that does
this one,
exist.
this
Yeah,
one.
this
So
is the one where the gatefolds open out as well, right? In the end. Mm-hmm.
okay, so this is actually like the book is starting when you read this book is starting with this image, the left one, right,
Yeah,
with the box.
yeah.
And when you start reading, you will see that I'm looking actually in a central part of India. I'm looking for a rape survivor, and I want to meet her, and then I want to just listen. But then it's confusing part that finally I met her or not, which is also not clear inside the book. But what you will get a letter inside here in the fold. When
Right.
you open the fold, you will get a letter. It's a letter is basically the person, the rape survivor, like whom I'm looking for in the beginning of the book. So this book is starting with the same image and the
Mm-hmm.
same conversation. It's also ending. And when this is actually the fold, and when you open, my friend, she is looking at you directly, and then also you are reading the letters because letters, I mean,
Right.
the rape
Which is
survivor.
an insert that
It's an
comes
insert
in this
in the
section.
fold, and then you can hold the letter, which is the original letter, and then you can read because again, like I did this reenactment because I don't personally, ethically, I don't want to put someone in a vulnerable position when they have already a very bad memories.
Right.
So it's a confusion also. Like I don't want to like clear the many part of the book. Like finally I have met her, or only I have listened from people, and I got the letter. I got the letter from the archive actually, not from her. It's basically a police complaint of her, which is the booklet format.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so like part of it is fiction, part of it is basically the real. The
Right.
letter is real, but the someone who is looking at you is not the person. But
Right.
she
Right.
can be the person also. It's not necessarily like who is looking at you. The thing is like why she is looking at you,
Mm-hmm.
and what is the reason behind it, and why I'm making this picture, why this picture is important, why she is wearing this bird mask, and why
Right.
she needed to hide her face,
Right.
and why actually she is like so why she need, like it's like I think it's this is I think the question is not who is. I think the point is why is more important rather who is inside the picture.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And it seems, and I could be wrong about it, but it seems like this is almost like a performance
Mm-hmm.
that's happening. And so this is a performance artist as well who you have
Yeah, she is. Yeah,
collaborated with.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And this is a part of her performance, or is this something that you guys then kind of
We made it in like Sundarban area.
you
Like
made it in?
we travel, like my friends traveled with me, and then we made. It's not part of any theater or performance. Like this is actually the inter work. Actually, whatever images we made is basically reenactment we made particularly for
For
this book. Yeah,
right,
for this book.
right,
Yeah.
right. I know we have a couple of questions, even though we're at 7, but I think we can go on for another few minutes. If
Mm-hmm.
would that be okay with you, Shama?
Sure, sure.
Okay. So Soumik Kundu, I'm starting from the questions in the chat actually. Soumik Kundu wanted to say how are you able to carry a studio setup to the location of the occurrence?
Well, I don't carry a studio setup. I only carry a flash and my friends, like that, either the collaborators or the theater actors. Like either I am doing a reenactment or like I'm working with a real person. So they actually comes with me one assistant, like for helping me in the flash and the camera. I don't use a huge light setup for my work. It's like one light or two light setup, only flash and camera. That's it, like a 3-4 people setup because I don't love to work because if you go then it's more like a filmy setup and the images will also come
Right. They'll
that way.
have that
Yeah.
effect.
Yeah.
Um, he also wanted to know from where have you received most of your archive? I'm assuming this is the material that's there in the book. Uh,
Okay, so I traveled all the places and met many people there, and then some people had the refugee certificate still. Some people don't have. Some people had an image of their dear one from like during that time. So I made like more than 200, 300 survivors, and from their personal archives actually collected and used in my book. So it's not from a particular place actually I found.
right. He also wants to know who your favorite film director is.
There are many, and it changes with time. But like name few definitely. Um, Abbas Kiarostami's work, Emir Kusturica's work, filmmaker John Abraham, not actor. There is like the filmmaker I love because they always work with a very low budget production
Hmm.
and made a masterpiece from it. And I love because their films are sometimes also mixed up with fiction and surrealism and magicalism. I don't love to use these particular words. It's like, but you can say like a fiction, reality, because they don't have the budget. So sometimes they use the real location and real people to act, and also they used actors some part of it. And I always like fall in love with this kind of writers and filmmakers who only make films and writes for their own people, not for the outside people. Like when I'm making a book, I send the book already to Malkangiri camp area, and I always like looking for what they think after seeing the work. And after that, like I will think, even if they think like okay we should have changed something, then I definitely giving all the books. That's because not all the books is given, only few are like few will from only if offset, not everywhere.
Right.
So these things I think for important for me, even if when I'm seeing films or reading a literature, I always love when the regional people who only write or make films for their own people, not for the Western people, like what the white people will think about our work. I don't believe in this, and I think these are the directors I love when they make films there for own people. But there are many, like I can send a list later.
Okay, we can add it to
Huh.
our the page on our website. That's for
We
you.
can give,
Can
if
make a
the
big
book is really bad, then we can give free DVDs with the book, like one surprise free DVD movie director, like
You should
one
not give
upper
these
stuff.
ideas to
Huh.
people, you know.
Then everyone will say the book is terrible.
Yeah, just give me the
The
DVD.
DVD, huh? Free.
Sumit Bhattacharya actually wanted to know what is more important to you, the experience or a photograph of it? I'm assuming.
Um, okay. Um, Experience. So for me, I think for me, photographs is basically a souvenir of a particular conversation. Every photograph, because I don't shoot. I never made a picture on streets or randomly visited a place and make pictures activities an assignment or something like that. But in my particular work, if you see all the images is basically somehow made after a conversation. Hmm? And when it is like conversation, it means like what I believe, like I'm conversing with you, like
Mhm.
I'm conversing with Anshika. And then after the conversation, I just want to remember our conversation. So we made a picture of ourselves. And this is actually my work. This is actually my experience. And this is actually, I think about my work. All the images I make is basically to remember the conversation I did with my collaborators.
Right.
It's same for Jata, it's same for full moon, it's same for Moichapi, it's same for the next work I'm doing, it's same for every work. It's basically the conversation we all wanted to remember. And we all do this even if in Instagram, Facebook, I think we all do the same practice. But that is actually I do in a serious way, make a book and sell. But
Right.
like
Right.
people can give in free Instagram, but I know I want to share my experience with money.
Fair
Anyway.
enough.
So,
Fair enough.
yeah,
No,
and
I
some
think that becomes an experience in itself also. You know, the collective kind of chronicling of these conversations
hmm,
into a
hmm.
singular form, let's just say.
Someone asked the Hungry Tide been an inspiration for this ocean?
Yes.
No, I read Hungry Tide, but Hungry
We
Tide is
spoke
not.
about that. You remember when we'd seen the work for the
Huh.
first time about some elements.
Yeah. So Anu's research, like who also wrote for my book. So Anu also like it's also written in Hungry Tide that Anu was part, but I met Anu through different like incident. But Anu also part of that Hungry Tide book. She also helped Amitabh Ghosh. That is mentioned in the book, like because Anu also doing the research and she is coming from a family like one is German and parents.
So Anu's
And she,
actually helped you out with all the research that exists.
Anu helped Amitabh Ghosh with the research, but Anu actually we collaborated. So there are other academics who also helped me with research, and then I traveled all the places, and then this collaborator also helped me. Anu helped me with many things to read in the beginning, and
Hmm.
she also like I'm really thankful to her. Like she agreed to write the research part about the Morichapi massacre. But Hungry Tide is not actually the inspiration. I read it later. I like the book. It's a really interesting book, but my work is always, I told you, it's not the interfiction, but Hamita is a fictional book. But my work is always with the collaborators, like that
Right.
person I'm working with, and they are the heroes of my work. But yeah, Hamita is definitely a very important book. In the first book, actually, where internationally someone mentioned about this massacre. So I think this book is very important, though it's not inspired in my work. But yes, this book is one of the most important book about this massacre because the international viewers or readers got to know about the first time in
Right.
35 years. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say not just the international, but in many cases, maybe even outside of Bengal.
Mhm.
You know,
No, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
it's a history.
Indian, many Indians
Yeah.
also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Even if
mean,
not forget about India, it's like the Bengalis were new generation. Like we born in 90s. So I knew because my family came from Bangladesh, so they like discussed about this. But the many people like born in Calcutta were not from like
right.
Bangladesh part, so they never discussed and how they will know what happened in 79 or some incident. We already forgot about like 30, 40 years. Or the people who are like born in 2000 were now like 20 years old or something. They never discussed about it. So this book is important for them also to
Absolutely.
know about this incident because the Bengali book which was written is not available from 90s only because the government banned those books and now the writers mostly died. So most of the books are like out of stock. This is the only book which is stock you can
Right.
like read. Yeah.
Right. Uh, Pritish Bali actually wanted to know how the people who you met for your research, the victims of the violence, how have they reacted to the final book?
Huh, that's I'm waiting for. So I already sent the book. So as because they live in a Malkangiri, so I sent them in DTDC and then it came back and then I'm trying another one. But they have seen the work. They have seen the PDF.
Mhm.
Uh, so I have seen like many people from the survivors. They actually used my images as Facebook profile picture for many months. So it's like will be very happy at least.
That's a pretty
मेरा
big validation, huh?
एग्जैक्टली एटलीस्ट मेरा पिक्चर कोई तो फेसबुक में डाला.
फेसबुक
हाँ,
में तो
हाँ,
गया.
मेरा अलावा कोई तो मेरा फेसबुक में डाला. Like usually I post everything my work, nobody shared. So that's at least someone actually shared my like pictures, though most of the time without credit.
Right.
But it's their image also. So like forget about the credit. Yeah, they reacted with the images good, but the book like in hand I don't still know, but I'm just waiting.
Well, you've just got it like 2, 3 days ago, so I
Yeah,
think
like the
it's
book,
pretty
the
exciting.
entire book is basically made 2, 3 days back now,
Mhm.
and I just came back from Delhi today. So this
Okay.
person, like if you see this person, like a founder and this transparent image, and this is picture actually basically I found from the archives, the school teacher of Morichapi school, and then I found him after 40 years here, Malkangiri. So he is terribly ill now, and
Okay.
he called me a couple of weeks back, and that is why we were in a hurry to make this book and during this pandemic also. Because he said like maybe I'll not be able to see your book, and maybe I'm for the last time I'm calling you Shomo. But remember our struggle and tell it to the people and Doctor said like maybe I'll die in weeks, but just like bless you that you are doing something so that people will remember, because it's the book always like Hungry Tide is a very important book, but this is the only book where you can see the survivors, the
Yeah.
original survivors of the incident. And that is why I think somehow this book is very important for me as well, because these people are very old now. And so, but fortunately, he's still okay, and I pray like she will be okay for more years and years. So I am just waiting the book reach this week, and he will give me a call again and say what he thinks about the book. I'm just waiting for it.
Right.
Yeah, I'm also eagerly waiting
Yeah.
to know their reaction. Yes.
Humayun is here and wants to know how can he get the book to Karachi.
You can't get the book in Karachi.
Humayun, we have to get
Uh,
you to Delhi in order for you to get this book back.
yeah, you can get it. I think you can order if the courier is available. Definitely, it's available through Offset. I
Yeah,
think
I mean,
Offset is
we've got
also.
we at Offset we have a bookshop where we are selling Shobo's book.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, right now it's only within India. The pandemic has a lot of other restrictions on shipping and it's very unreliable. Um, yeah, but I think I want Humayun to come to Delhi to take this book.
I think that's better. I
Yeah,
also want him to come to Calcutta
yeah,
to get the
perfect. So
signature. So
we'll
he'll
put
come to
this in.
Delhi and then he'll come to
We'll
Calcutta
get
to
a
do the
limited
signature.
edition signature
Signature book.
copy.
Signature milega Calcutta आएंगे जब.
One more question actually Sumit has. He wants to know when you start working on a project, do you think about what the final production will be or later on while working? I think it's.
Well, I always love to go with the flow, but for particular project, I always thought about the book from the very beginning. Because when I was discussing with a collaborator asked me like, "What do you want to do with this work?" And after 40, and this also the conversation start inside the book. What do you want to do after 40 years? And I always told them that I will make a book. I'll make a book so that people will remember you. People will remember me, that I was part of you. People will remember that I was with you at any time of your life to listen these stories from you. So this remembering thing actually I want to do, and that is why I want to do the book. And I told them, I promised them I will the book. So for this project, definitely I thought about the book from the very beginning. But I always love to go with the flow, because I always believe it's not necessary, because it's not school. It's not an engineering school that you have to be specific after 4 years, you have to get a job or anything. You can end with anything, just installation, just a travel exhibition, can book, or just like talk, like 100 talks, arranging 100 talks and you inviting your collaborators. That can be also in work, that can be in performance. It's not important. I don't believe in this that have to make something when we are working. We can do anything. Like we can also make a WhatsApp audio conversation and then start sharing with your contact list, and then the people who will get it, they will also start sharing the contact list. What is the Sanghi people are now doing? Their IT sales.
Mhm.
So the work can be anything. So I personally don't believe like to think anything in the beginning. Just go with the
But I
flow.
know that after making this book, you are now curious and also
Mhm.
looking at working on work for another project that already exists, right?
Yeah, so Jatra, like Jatra, we are thinking. Actually, Bornali is more interest to make the book from Jatra work, because both are related. Full
Right.
Moon, I don't want, because this is the kind of a journey of our friends, and I think the journey is not ended now, because we all are now in 30s, just entered 30. So we want
Mm.
to like see ourselves more 10 years, and when we're in 40s, then we want to look back what we made picture when we were in 25, because Full Moon I did start in 2013 14, 7 years back.
Right.
I was my friends and I was like 23 sometime. So Full Moon, definitely I'm not going to make in next year, maybe after a few years when we'll. So I also always discuss with my collaborators like, what do you think, should I make a
Mm.
book now or later? So my friends and we are not still convinced that the work is end.
Mhm.
It's just a beginning, like 6 7 years, nothing. But because this is our age and we are going through. But Jatra and this work is done because these people our like 80s and major like jatra is I documented. My own grand uncle died and many others also died. So funny things like why like keeping it for years? Like let's make a book so that like it's a for memory. Like people at least like part of them like who are still alive can see what is the outcome of the work. So we have not like still like we'll make it as because the pandemic situation. This book is kafi tha like making this book.
This in itself, I wanted to, I mean, that can be a separate talk, just making a book in the middle of the
during
pandemic.
pandemic time, huh? Like in the February, March, when
Yeah,
like pandemic, July,
when we had
it
that
was like
conversation,
nothing was there.
right?
And came and then 6 months in isolation, we actually made the entire book. Like
Right,
क्योंकि हम लोग बाहर नहीं निकल सकते थे because of this pandemic and all, we stayed home and
and
worked on the archives, transcripts, like letters and all, and then start making the book. And within 6 7 months, I think we worked almost 7 months, September, right? So
right,
yeah, it's 7 months because we were there in February, came back in March first week. So in 7 months, we worked like 24 hours almost, like every day. We are going sleeping after making the book and then wake up and then start because we have
back.
nothing to do like last 7 months. And so okay, let's do this book.
Chalo, that worked out damn well
Huh.
for all of us, even. Right.
Thank you.
Right. Maybe for Jatra, I think we're going to get Bernali also to join us in this conversation. Since
Yeah, I think that will be
I think
very
she's going
interesting.
to be the motivating force for that book. That
Yeah,
would be quite
her book actually.
yeah.
My images, her
We'll
book.
call it her book with your
Huh.
images.
Yeah.
She's officially
Yeah.
a publisher, even right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think yeah, maybe we'll have a chat with the publisher next time round. But
Yes.
until then, thank you so much, Shomo.
Yeah.
It
Thank
was a
you
really nice
so
talk. It was
much. Yeah.
great to hear you
And
talk about your process. And thank you everyone who did join in
yes. Thank
our
you everyone.
talk today and for this month and for the future months till December has been facilitated with the support of the Swiss Arts Council. Prohilvitsia has been very kind enough to give us a grant to continue doing these virtual talks and create some kind of our own archive on authors and bookmakers from the region. Uh,
Mhm.
I'm super glad that we could have you here, Shomo,
Yeah.
and
So I just want to say something like about
oh,
the book.
please,
So you can in India, like you can always order in offset, but even if
yeah,
outside India, so like I already discussed with the DHL and DTC, they are like doing giving service outside India. So if anyone, they can write directly to Red Turtle Photobook
do you want
gmail.com.
to put it in the messages
Yeah, or they
in
can
the
just
chat,
find
or they can
from
just
Instagram or
guys
मेरा
Instagram?
website से मिल जाएगा. Like in
हाँ,
मेरा website, like it's
we've given your
available. हाँ.
website, and udhar
हाँ.
you'll find
So if from
direct.
outside India, they can always order. We will save, and the book has stocks. Even if it is not like offset, me agar say like it is like out of stock. If you see, I think it's better they can mail you and keep
Right,
it because we have enough stocks now, like
yeah,
almost like
the
450
books will now be
left.
arriving.
Just like the book is arrived, so you can like pre-order. So I will send Anshika as soon as
Right,
possible the books,
you
and
can
she can
just
then
write it to me. If you
huh.
write an email
Even
to
if it
me,
is
then
out of
that's
stock
perfect.
in the card, but they
Yeah,
can
you
write you
can
and
just let
then
me
you
know.
can forward the book. Yeah,
Yes, but
that's.
Humayun, we're waiting for you to come to Karachi. You can't go
Ha,
outside.
particularly
Humayun is
Humayun,
such
like, yeah, he
a
had to come to
see. I
Calcutta.
knew it. He's written. Will get in
Ha,
touch to order.
hmm,
But yeah, but thanks so
well,
much, guys. See you
thank
next
you.
Friday. We'll have Arko Datto join us
Ha,
for a talk about his book.
Orko lives in my neighborhood.
Yes,
Maybe आ
we should
जाऊंगा.
just you should come at the background, wait from
Yeah,
your window, and we'll have a chat with both of you again then. But
bye bye.
thank you and good evening. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice
Bye.
weekend.